Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And a very good evening, everyone.
Evening, Prof.
Salam,
Good
Prof.
evening. Salam.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Evening, Prof.
Salam. So, how is everyone? Okay.
So far, so good.
Michael, I apologize for not recognizing your WhatsApp message today.
It's okay.
Today, yeah?
I
Yesterday.
fixed it. I found a way out, and I sent an email to the IDCE. Maybe you just sent me,
IDEC.
and they told me we have to make the assessment tomorrow. Since
Oh.
from tomorrow, and we can just sign in.
It doesn't start till tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, they told me the 28th to the 31st. I don't know, maybe they're delayed.
Yeah, but they just answered me, and I received their they say that from tomorrow and till the January the first month of the 2021.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, usually anything with Pucha Blast related to technical issues, lectures we can't really do a whole lot. So usually you have to refer to the IDEC people to square those things away. So I'm glad you got it resolved. Okay, so welcome everyone to week 10. So tonight, and I apologize for last week. Let me start by apologizing for last week. My computer just completely died. I don't know what happened. And I just could not connect back in. And so just had to cut it short. So I apologize, but hopefully, inshallah, that won't happen again tonight. So tonight let me just bring up the Pucha Blast just to look at our agenda. Where is my Pucha Blast? Oh wait, that's not Pucha Blast. Okay. So tonight's class, we're going to be looking at, so last week we talked about the role of religion and spirituality in youth development, right? And so now we're going to continue with the sort of theme of the different ecological supports that we find in society for youth development, okay? And so tonight we're going to move to something that we're all very familiar with, school. Okay, so we're going to look at school as a developmental support for young people, for youth development. All right. But before we do that, so here's the agenda for tonight. Just again, a reminder to sign into the attendance at the top of the Pucha Blast course page. Okay. In my other class, a lot of the students forgot to do it, so they were WhatsApping me after the class, telling me, "Prof, I forgot." Okay, so just remember to do that at some point. And then also the mid-semester class evaluation. But according to Michael, it's not going to be active till tomorrow. I don't know. They told me the 28th to the 31st. So I don't know. Try again. Maybe try it tomorrow, just to be on the safe side. And then also we need to decide on our final exam date, time, and format. All right. So if we look at let me bring up the calendar. How do I do that? All right, so here's our calendar. So we're almost into January already, 2021. Okay, our last class is actually on the 26th of January. All right, and then there's like a week, usually there's a week break. So I think finals will start on the week of February not this one, 8th. Okay, so I'm assuming that finals will probably start the week of February 8th. So we have some options, given the fact that the course is online. We do have options. I can give, if you'd like, you can have a take-home exam, or you can have a sort of in-class exam for your final. So which would you prefer? Would you prefer a take-home exam or an in-class exam? Obviously, a take-home
Take
exam is going to
home.
be, oh, okay, wow.
Home.
Oh,
Take home.
obviously it's going to be longer. It's going to be probably a bit harder, but it will, yeah, you can have, I can give you like 3 days to do it. How does that sound? Everyone's like, yeah,
Good.
yeah,
3 days.
yeah, 3 days.
Yes.
It'll be like a mini Viva, not a mini Viva, it'll be like a mini comprehensive exam.
A
Well,
mini of
No, it'll probably be like four or five essay questions or something like that. Okay, so but being take home, obviously it's going to be nothing that's directly from, you know, the notes or articles that we've been going through. But of course, you'll have to use those as your class materials. But it's all open, whatever. It's open book, open note, open internet. So it's open resource, so you can use whatever resources you want. But it'll be definitely essay format. But for this class, usually even the in-class final exam is also essay format. So either way, your final exam is going to be an essay format. So how can we do this? Can we take a vote? Or should we just do like a roll call vote? I can just go and ask everybody I see on the screen. I'll just ask you one by one. How about that?
do we have to decide now?
No, you don't. That's a very good question, Mutiara. Do we have to decide now? No, we don't. Why don't we think about it first? Let's take this week to think about it, and then maybe next week we can decide. How does that sound?
Okay,
sounds
Prof.
great.
Sounds
Maybe
good,
Yeah.
Prof.
Prof, you can give us a hint, the difference between the take home and the sit in online exam.
Oh, it'll just be longer. The take home will just be longer. Because the in-class exam is just a 2-hour exam. So in the past, what I would do is I'd give you like 4 questions and you have to answer 3 in 2 hours, essay style, essay format. So if it's a take-home exam, maybe it'll be like 5 or 6 questions out of 7 or 8 or something like that. So it'll be longer, obviously, because I'll give you more time, 2 or 3 days to do it. So it's up to you. But those are sort of the options. So why don't you think about it for a week? Maybe you can even discuss it amongst yourself. That's fine too. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So we'll put that one on hold for now. And we'll go back here. All right. So let's decide. We'll KIV that one for a week. And what else? I think that's about it for the housekeeping. Is there anything that I'm forgetting, or anyone have any questions about anything, assignments or issues with anything related to the class? No?
Nope.
Okay. So so this week we're going to be, as I mentioned, we're going to be moving on to the issue of school and youth. We're not going to be looking at school from the perspective that we normally look at school. We're not going to be talking about academic achievement. We're going to be talking about youth development. Okay, so in what role does school play in the development of young people, and what are the different ways that school can be rethought, re-engineered, reconceptualized to maximize how young people are developed. And so we're going to look at a book chapter that talks about some of the best practices, at least from a US context, on how schools can be rethought of, restructured, re-engineered to maximize youth development. Okay, so school is one of the major institutions in society that really affects how young people develop, right? So in Malaysia, for example, the issue of education is never ending, right? We always hear about it in the media, always hear it from policymakers about the importance of education. But of course, we normally look at the issue of education from the perspective of academic performance. Okay, rarely do we talk about education as an institution that is meant to develop young people's character and their competencies to be productive, thriving individuals. Okay, it's not often thought of or looked at from that perspective. But if we're coming at it from a youth development perspective, that's the way we want to think about school. We want to look at school, how effective our schools are doing that. Okay, so after the presentation by our esteemed presenters in the class, I'm going to show you a very short, just a 3 or 4 minute video of a very unique school that I had the pleasure of visiting and doing a little bit of research at in the US. They have a very unique model of how they do schooling. And then we're going to have, based on that and the reading, we're going to have a short activity after that, inshallah. Okay, assuming my computer does not die. Okay, so that's the plan. And so who are our presenters for tonight? Are the presenters ready to go?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Oh yeah, Hasbul, Hazlina. You have a third member, don't you? On your team?
Yeah, Madiana.
Oh, there she is. Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't see her on my screen. Okay. So who is going to be starting us off?
Azlina.
Hazlina. Okay. So I'll stop sharing. Okay. Hazlina, take us away.
Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to Dr. Latif and my fellow friends. So today our group will present on the article of Can High School Foster Youth Development? This article is written by Jerome M. Ziegler. So our group consists of Hasbul Hadi, Mardiana, and me myself, Nur Azlina. So basically our content for the presentation is as what you can see on the screen. So next.
So sorry, Azlina, if I could just butt in just 1 second. Sorry, I should have said this before you started, but so when going through this article, for those who have not read it, it's really important to understand, again, context. So this article is written from a US perspective, okay? So always understand where people are, the context through which they're speaking, okay, in the work, okay? So you have to always understand that. Next week we're going to be discussing another book chapter that was actually written by myself and some of my colleagues here, and it's based on a Malaysian program, okay? And so it's very much, it'll be much more familiar to us because we're all based here. But so we have to understand that many of the things we're talking about here are from a US perspective. However, I think what you'll notice is that there are a lot of similarities in the public or government education system there with what is going on here. Okay, so that we can easily relate to a lot of these same topics. Okay, and so that's why I found this article to be useful. All right, so anyway, just wanted to preface with that. Okay, go ahead, Azlina. Sorry.
Okay, so as what Prof have told us, that this article is in the context of high school in US. But as we go through the articles, found out that the problems and some issues are really similar with what our schools facing in Malaysia, especially the overburden issues and how to develop youth. So, so what is school? School are where the majority of youth spend most of their time. So young people of United States are required to attend school or at least be homeschooled until they are 16, 17 or 18. It depends on the states. Some may be around 16 and maybe some states require 17 to 18. So why, Prof, it does not standardize for all the states? in US?
The U.S. being a very big country, it has a more decentralized system there. So especially with education, there's actually not a whole lot of federal government role in education. Most of it is state-based. And so different states, and there's different reasons for it. Some of it's just historical or whatever, but different states have different policies often when it comes to education. So even most of the funding for education comes from the state government, not the federal government. Okay, the federal government just provides very basic guidelines, and then the states do most of the specific policy making around education. Okay, so it's very different than in Malaysia, but of course it's a much bigger country, right? Much bigger country. So maybe that's partly the reason why as well.
So, so the purpose of school is a place where basic intellectuals were taught. Where basic intellectuals means by reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is a minimum level of competence that they will learn in school to prepare the youth to face the adult world. So school also a place where youth would acquire character and the habits of responsibility. Maybe they will learn about responsibility throughout their learning process, and maybe in their school activities. So it's also school also can be considered as an instrument of socialization because when this youth went to school, they can communicate and mingle with their friends who are the same age, and this is how they can socialize with their peers. So school also to provide a universal experience for children and youth of different ethnics, religious, and social class backgrounds. So maybe they come from a different backgrounds, but what unite them, what make them similar is the schools. They went to the same schools and they learn the same thing, the same values in the school. So the future of youth is intimately connected to the functioning of high school and the specific question of the youth development. There may be some other public institutions, but school has been considered as an important agent to for the youth development. So next.
Okay. So would anybody disagree with anything that that Azlina just presented? Anything that's different with here in Malaysia than what you've just heard? In terms of the purpose of school, the general idea behind school, and some of the basic realities of school?
Nope.
No? Pretty consistent, I think, right? Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. Okay. And I think not that the bottom one, to provide a universal experience for children and youth of different ethnic backgrounds. That's very much the philosophy of public schooling, yeah, public education. So in most countries, that's kind of the idea, is to build a society where children from all and youth from all different backgrounds, whatever their background, including their social class, whether rich, poor, whatever, can come together and intermix, mingle, socialize, etc. All right, so it has that sort of nation building element to it, and that's part of the philosophy behind public schooling as well. Okay, all right.
It's education for all, is it?
Yeah, education for all. I mean, that's really the idea behind public schooling, is that anybody and everybody can be educated. Fatin has a comment here. Perhaps in Malaysia, for certain states like Selangor and Johor, there is an additional curricula of Islamic education embedded. Yeah. So the specific elements of what's in the curricula or curriculum, yeah, that you're going to find, of course, some differences and some there's exceptions in that sense, in terms of the content of the curriculum. But in terms of the basic function of school, I think that in terms of the basic function of school, I think this is a pretty universal definition in terms of what was presented here about public schooling, especially. Private schooling is a whole different matter, actually. And again, private schooling is, because it's very diverse, the different types of private schools out there. You know, some are religious based, some are corporate, you know, they're privately funded. You have elite boarding schools. So private education is is sort of a different matter altogether. But in terms of public schooling, this is pretty much the philosophy. Okay. Okay, Aslina?
Next. So in the next segment, we will learn about what youth experience in good schools. In this article, there are two subtopics: what they will learn in good schools and what the students did not learn in school, what they cannot have in school also. So for this one is report on the state of American public education in 1983 by the National Commission of Excellence of Education. The report title is Nation at Risk, Suggests for an Education Reform. The reform will be on the structure. It suggests about reform of the structures and the training of the teachers. So according to the report, the elements that are needed to provide better outcomes for students consists of three highs. The first high is high expectations, high content, high support, and the combination of these three highs will lead to high achievement. The fourth one is high achievement. So in order to achieve high achievement, changes in school operations, classroom practice are suggested. So next.
Okay, so what is, sorry, Aslina, can we go back to that slide? Okay, so who can tell me, what does that mean? What is high expectations, high content, and high support? What is meant there? Anyone want to share? Why are these so important?
Maybe these are the elements that is actually helping youth to develop.
Okay. And what are the elements? For example, what does high expectations mean? What is high content?
KPIs,
Sorry, Fatin?
high expectations, could it mean KPIs, key performance indicator?
You're definitely, you're a government servant, aren't you? You work in the government, don't you?
Yeah.
You've been brainwashed like the rest of us. KPIs. Well, sort
Yes,
of. I
KPIs.
mean, KPIs are sort of from that kind of the concept of high expectations, but not quite. Not quite. I mean, KPI is just an outcome. It's outcome-based management, but where you work based on certain outcomes. But it's not necessarily high expectations. High expectations is a bit different. Who else understands what is high expectations or would like to share? I mean, KPIs can reflect high expectations. For example, my KPI as a professor who's involved in 2 different research institutes, my KPI for 1 year is to produce six journal publications a year. That's the highest in my faculty. So there's this high expectation given to me. Okay. So what is my when I am given that expectation, what is my response supposed to be? What is the function of giving people high expectations or putting high expectations on people?
To do more.
Yeah.
Commitment.
Exactly. I expect all of you to get an A in my class. In other words, I believe each one of you can get an A in my class. Right?
Alhamdulillah.
Exactly. So you as the student feel, wow, you know, it's encouraging. It's, of course, it may be a little bit daunting because maybe you don't think you can get an A, but high expectations, it in other words, if you look at schools, for example, we create this underclass in school a lot of times when we have this thing called streaming, not streaming, it's called, what do you call it when you have students broken down into different levels of classes, you know, like the low class, and then you have the high, you know, the smart class, and then like the middle class. Is it called,
Ranking,
what is it called?
class ranking.
Ranking.
Well, ranking is one thing, but they have, you know, what is it called? Not streaming.
Clusterization.
Clusterization, maybe that's the word. There's a term for it. I can't think offhand. So if you come into school and you take some kind of entry exam or something, and you're in the low class, right? And then you're in that low class, and then the teachers show up and they don't even really teach. They just babysit you, basically. They have very low expectations for you. They don't think you're going to become anything, right? How does that make you as a student feel? Like you're worthless, right? As opposed to the student that's put in the high class where you are expected to, get straight A's, or you're expected to go to university, or you're given that expectation. So you work towards that expectation more often than not. Okay. It's that encouragement. It's that belief that you can achieve something really good. And then of course, when you couple high expectations with high support, right? So the adults, the teachers, the principals, the parents, they give you all the support you need to achieve those expectations, right? And you're given that high content, meaning you're given the best content out there, the cutting edge curriculum with, all the latest knowledge and information, right? And you're given really high quality teachers who are giving you all kinds of different types of support, academic support, social support, emotional support. Okay. So it's this kind of idea that shaped these original recommendations for school reform. If we give young people, if we expect them to be high achievers, right? We expect them to do well, and we give them the support to do well, and we give them the latest content, the best content, curriculum content, for example, right? Then we can expect them to achieve. Then we expect them to achieve, right? And that's sort of where they're coming from with this kind of reform. Okay, so those sort of three things. And if we look at schools the way they are, we often don't get these three things, right? We often don't get high expectations for all students, right? Which means that we work towards supporting them to achieve those high expectations, right? And then content, etc. Okay, so this is what they had concluded at this point that was needed to reform schools. All right. Okay, any questions or comments?
Maybe we can see this kind of highs in boarding schools or in schools, because these kind of things exist in the schools.
Yeah. I mean, they've done lots of studies of students that, for example, you're born into a family where your parents expect you to go to university. It's not even a doubt. There's not even a doubt. You are expected to attend university, as opposed to you're born into a family where you're not even expected to really finish SPM. It's a totally different reality. It's a totally different reality. The expectation, in the way that expectation sort of drives you to achieve and to put in the work and to make the commitment to achieve that. It's very different. It's very different. So high expectations are very important. We should expect the best out of all of our students, right? And then work towards helping them to achieve those expectations, right? Okay, so let us move on.
So beside the 4 highs that I've mentioned earlier, new additional elements also were introduced in order to create an excellent school. The first one is a school large enough to provide a wide range curriculum, but small enough to enable individual students to become well known to staff. It means that there should be a close relationship between students, teachers, and staff of the school. So second one is long enough periods and small enough classes to allow teachers and students to explore topic in depth, so that when they have the longer period and small class, the students can have will have fully understand of each topic and can encourage further discussions among the students and the teachers as well. So thirdly, instruction that incorporates the opportunities and resources offered by the outside community, including work and service learning. Teachers who are well prepared in their subject matter with time to prepare creative lesson plans and for continual professional developments, means that a continuous training so that they can be better in doing their job. So an approach to students by all staff that treats young persons as capable of framing their own education and sharing in school and classroom governance. It means that we empower the youth in school, so give them some kind of responsibilities, so it will groom them to be better youth. So next one is administrators, including central district superintendents and building principals, with strong vision and determination to acquire and make use of the foregoing elements. Means every parties work together towards excellent educational system.
Okay, so do you remember earlier in the semester we sort of opened up the class early on by talking about how secondary school extended childhood. Do you remember that whole discussion we had early on about the history of youth, the definition of youth, how youth came about and all that? And we mentioned, or we discussed at length about how this is in the context of high school, which is the equivalent of secondary school here in Malaysia. And we talked about how secondary school extended childhood, right? It made young people young for a longer period of time. In other words, it delayed their transition into adulthood. Now, if you look at some of these elements of creating excellent schools, and this is based on a lot of research, of course, one of the things that you'll notice is what are some of these things in relation to, think about in terms of the way we treat children versus the way we treat adults. Okay, what do you notice about some of these points? And it may not come clear to you yet. It will as we go on in the lecture because it's in the article. But what are some of the things that you notice here?
We give more attention to children, but we give more independence and responsibility to adults.
Yeah, well, that's what some of these things are. I think I think that's what they're hitting on, is more of a focus on treating youth in secondary school like adults as opposed to children. Okay, giving them more say in what they learn, how they learn, deeper, more time for deeper learning, closer relationships with teachers who are adults, right? So better relationships with teachers. So you have what's called more of a youth adult partnership approach, which we're going to be discussing much more next week. Okay. So again, it's trying to make schools more developmentally appropriate for that age, because these are not children. These are budding adults. Okay. And so you're going to see this sort of theme throughout this, where the author talks about all these best practices in secondary school, right? Because some of these things, obviously, we don't see in our schools here, or even in most schools in the U.S. for that matter. There's still this infantilization of treating young people like children. And so this is where a lot of the problem occurs, right? And that's why a lot of these things have come out through research, that these things are effective because you're treating young people as they should be treated, more like adults, less like children. Okay. So, for example, one of the studies I'm doing now is on this issue of youth adult partnership in schools, youth voice in schools, where young people are involved in decision making and governance in schools. We're trying to study that here, actually. Okay, and so of course we don't see too much of it, but you do see it, little nooks and crannies of it. At different times, at different types of activities in school, you do see roles and opportunities for students to really take the lead and be decision makers, right? And they really embrace it. They really like it because it's more in line with their age. All right. So this is what we're going to see more of, I think, throughout this topic as we go on. Okay. So, Azlina, please continue, unless there's comments or questions.
So Deborah Mayer is one of the excellent principal of Central Park East School. Describe what should be changed to accomplish excellent school result. First one is providing time to teachers to discuss among themselves their objectives, programs, and methods. So we empower teachers to decide on their lesson plans and what they want to teach. So what they want to achieve during their class. Hold on, Prof. Someone's
Work from home, work from home. It's okay, go ahead, go ahead. Okay, this is funny. This is so, welcome to the new reality. So let's see, let me finish this slide for her, just because this is a continuation really of what we just spoke about. Okay, and then involving students in creating learning objectives and curricula to meet those objectives. Okay, so here we definitely see, this is something you would never see in like a primary school setting, right? Where students are actually involved in creating the curricula and the learning objectives. Oh, there she is, that was fast, okay. Probably Shopee or something, right, Lazada? Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Prof. Delivery guy.
Okay.
Okay, so next is involving students in creating learning objectives and curricula to meet those objectives. And the third one is personalizing high school education along the lines of typical practice in kindergarten, elementary schools. I think by the third point means we have the close relationship among the students and the teachers, because in kindergarten, maybe because they are small in groups, there's not a lot of students, so the teacher can give their full attention to the kids, and parents also they also have good relationship with the teachers. But unlike in secondary schools, in Malaysia, maybe we have more than 5 classes for each year. So in each class, maybe there will be around 30 students to 35 students in a class. So maybe it is difficult for give their to focus and to give their attention to the students. So if we can personalize this kind of thing in the high schools, maybe we can achieve the better result.
That's excellent, Aslina. Very good commentary there. Yeah, absolutely. Because again, at this age, this is where young people's relationships with adults who are not their family adults, in other words, not parents, like we call it familial adults. Okay, so other adults other than the parents, this is at the age where they need to have a lot of socialization with these adults, because they are, again, they are what we would call emerging adults, okay, or young adults, and they're entering the adult world. So they need to have somebody basically hold their hand and to show them what it's like to be an adult. You're entering the adult world. This is what it's like. So that's why these relationships are so important at this age. But yet we set up schools where, students have 50 students in a class. There's very little opportunity for the teachers and the students to really interact, right? To really interact and develop those relationships. Okay. And there's been a lot of research done on this. It's one of the most, what they call, it's one of the strongest predictors of school engagement among students is relationships with teachers. And so it's a big problem when we have these massive schools with very little quality interaction between students and teachers. So yeah, so they're referring to, like, the kids in kindergarten, they have such good relationship with the teachers, right? And it's really interesting how different it is when they get to the older grades. Okay.
Okay. Right. So on this slide, you can see the result of 9 common principles, means that the elements that we've been discussing earlier. So the result of the elements of the 4 highs and the small classes, and teachers got close relationship, it will lead to this result. First one is strong teacher-student interaction, personalization of the classroom, integration of subject matter, small classes and Socratic seminars, use of student portfolios and student team research project, strong involvement of parents and other community resources. And all these kind of elements will go to higher student achievement.
So of those six principles there, how many would you say exist in our schools here? Generally speaking, of those six, based on your knowledge and experience of the education system here.
Education system in general.
Yeah, or unless you have a specific school that you're thinking of, but more general.
I think strong teacher-student interaction.
In that, you're speaking from the Indonesian perspective, Mutiara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so generally, in maybe this is really interesting. This is good. We get some intercultural sharing here. But can you tell us, like, in Indonesian?
Because my high school is private.
Private.
Sorry, doctor. Yeah. My high school is private high school.
Okay, and so how big were your classes in high school? Can I just ask?
Yeah. One class consists of 40 students.
40.
40. Yeah,
And
40.
yet you still had strong student-teacher interaction.
Yeah, and I do feel like my class is my home.
Oh, very good. How were they able to have strong teacher-student interaction in such big classes?
I don't know, maybe it's just the teachers, the way they teach is really interesting.
Okay.
And
Was there
they
much
just
time?
open
Sorry, go ahead.
any questions if we do have any. I think that's it.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? We have students from China as well. Any of the students from China want to share your experiences in China in terms of the schools, your the schooling experiences?
Doctor, can I share?
Yeah, please, go ahead. Amira.
Because I'm from an Islamic private school.
Ah,
So yeah, so I think we have a strong teacher-student interaction because we don't have like such public school. They have in each level they have more than five classes.
right.
But in specifically in my school, we only have like 2 to 3 classes for each level.
Okay.
Like yeah, like mine, the latest one in secondary 5, I have three classes, and only one classes is for the SPM exams. SPM students examine, yeah, and then in each class we have 20 students.
Okay.
So our relationship with teachers are like very strong. We even like sometimes we do like hangout thingy with the teachers as well. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, it's very important actually. Again, we're not talking here about academic performance per se. We're talking about development, and when we talk about youth development, we're talking more about character building and competency building, right? Competencies for life. So all the different competencies. It's not necessarily academic performance alone. Okay, so again, we're not looking at school typically the way we look at school for this particular topic. All right, but that's Amir, I think that's very interesting, and I think it's very important that you mentioned that. Now, strong teacher interaction is not only about class size. I was just asking that question. Like Mutiara, I think you're absolutely right. I think it also depends a lot on the teacher's valuing of student-teacher interaction. Okay, that teachers also value it and understand the importance of it, and then the effort and commitment they make to interacting with students. So even if you have a big class, but you have a really committed and understanding and just a great teacher, they can establish that kind of interaction as well. So it's not only about class size, but class size tends to get in the way. When we interviewed teachers for our study, we found that a lot of the teachers, they want to have more interaction with students. They want to have more time Amira, like you said, just to hang out with the students and get to know the students and help them with their problems and all that, but they just don't have time. They just don't have the time between all the classes they have to teach, all the work they have to do, the administrative work, they just don't have the time. So it's a shame that they don't have that. Yeah, okay. So Mutiara added, the way my high school teachers teach is very much parent-like. They do care with the children just like parents. Yeah, so again, those kind of interactions are very important, very important. And I'm sure it was a positive influence on you as well as the other students. Okay, anyone else want to share?
Yeah, Prof. I want to share my, I think it's primary school. We have 33 students and
Oh,
only for one teacher. He just teach us, so she have a lot of time. I think she influenced me a lot because she really respect us. Sometimes even I have some problems with my parents, and I feel very sad, and I will tell to her, and
yeah.
she always listen to me carefully. I
Oh,
think
wow.
it's influenced me a lot. I really love.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I really, yeah, it's a very good experience.
Well, obviously she did because you still remember. I mean, you still remember her and you remember her impact on you. So obviously it was a very, powerful experience. And I think great teachers really do.
Yeah, because yeah, she teach me about 5 years, quite a long
Oh,
time for my primary school.
wow. You're the same teacher for 5 years.
But yeah, just like my mom, I think in my
Ah,
memory.
yeah, of course. Well, that's one of the things that they've also, and they mentioned that in this article, but one of the best practices that they've also.
But I think that, what Bella say is actually a exception in China. Yes, we all know that China have a very high density and the high
Yeah.
population. So
Yeah.
actually in
So,
China, our classroom is just like a education factories, and all we have to know is about the formulas and the words. Um, Mostly, I would say that it's sort of like the chicken talk. It's a cramming teaching method.
I see.
So the teacher always told us what is right and what is wrong, and always give us the answer, and we don't even know how to get the answers. So I think this is the fundamental differences between the Chinese education and the Western education. So we don't have a strong teacher-student interaction, I think, over the before the high school. So, but after we get into the college, maybe there's some interaction with the teachers, but it's not so strong like in Malaysia or some place, some Western countries. It's different because the high populations.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, agree. That's
Yeah,
why
doctor,
when I went
I
to
have
middle school, I never find a teacher like her. So
Uh-huh.
I think she influenced me a lot.
Yeah.
yes,
So
Prof.
it's quite rare for Chinese student to encounter the Bella's teacher, I think.
Yeah, I never find a teacher
Actually,
in middle school like her, and I think lots of teacher in my middle school and high school, I just lots of mine I cannot remember it.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
uh,
Yeah, Cheng, you want to say something?
Prof. I think Chinese students have been instilled with the idea of learning all the time since childhood,
Yeah.
and China has always followed the principles of Confucius.
Yes.
Is
Right.
respect teachers. So I think it is impossible for Chinese students and teachers in China to achieve a real sense of friendship. And in secondary school, I think there were more than 50 students in each class. So these are
Yeah.
likely to cause teenagers weariness and internet addiction and many problems.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. No, that's a very important point you made, Chengi, about, the foundational sort of values and principles of the system, and of the country, of course, that's going to play a major role in how education is structured. And then, of course, just the demographic reality of just having so many students and so many people to educate. So, they have to make do with whatever they have, given those constraints and those limitations. All right. So, it's definitely understandable. Again, this is not in any way a critique of any particular system or country. It's just looking at the different ways that school shapes young people's lives, you know, and that's really what this is all about. But Bella, I mean, Bella, your example of is very interesting. Another for another reason, and the fact that another thing that they found is that having those extended relationships with teachers is often very valuable as well. So you said you had the same teacher for 5 years. So this is somebody obviously that you're gonna know very well. You know, you spent 5 school years with her, and they're gonna know you very well, right? And so in terms of their ability to teach you, they're gonna have a much better ability to personalize their their sort of teaching and learning interactions with you because they know you so well, right? And that's
Yes.
another element to this is personalization has been found. You know, we have to know that every students are all individuals and they learn differently. They have different interests, right? They have different things that they're good at, things that they're not so good at. So the more a teacher knows about a student, the better and more effective they can be at educating them. And so that's why personalization is so important. And if you
Yeah,
have those long,
exactly.
yeah, and if you have those longer term relationships, it's easier for the teachers to know the students, to know what they need, right? And so that's kind of the idea behind that. But yeah, of course, you have a reality. You have 50 students in the class. That's very difficult to do. Very difficult to do, right? So, okay, thanks everyone. Very good sharing and inputs. Very interesting to hear your different perspectives. So, okay, let's continue.
So why all high schools don't resemble the best? This is the next part. Okay, there are some barriers to school promoting youth development. There are 4 barriers that were discussed in the articles. The first is accountability, order, inadequate resources, and student needs. So let us discuss on the first barrier, which is accountability. Accountability is a political and administrative norm. It results in voluminous record keeping and reporting. Public school principals spend significant time every day responding to requests for information and writing reports. Demands for accountability tend to overwhelm other priorities in which administration becomes educational enterprise where student learning and development should be. So it does not reflect the objective of the education itself because the administrators focus more on the administrative matters. So principals spend major portions of their time with budgeting, labor relations, relations with central district administration, student discipline, school safety, community relations, and managing staff. So as we can see here, principals were overburdened with admin tasks because if something went wrong, they will be accountable to it. So this kind of pressures made them to focus, not to focus on the teaching learning issues and the youth development process itself. So maybe this is one of the barrier of the youth development process.
Yeah, so principals have a really
This
hard time.
situation also happens in Malaysia.
Yeah.
We have recent years we have issues of bebanan tugas guru. Teachers claim that they are being overburdened with a lot of clerical tasks.
Right.
So what teachers been raise the issues of they have to key in all the data in the system, whereby the system is not that stable. So they have to fill up the data in the system takes a longer time. Sometimes can be finished about 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
And this has disturbed their learning, their job, that is to teach. So before I I continue my study. I work for KPM, Ministry of Education. So I work in the, my task is regarding the teacher service. So there are a lot of teachers that opt for early retirement. Because they said that in their forms, they said that they it is due to health problems. But actually, when we asked them, they said that this is because they cannot cope with the system. Because most of them has taught about 20 to 30 years. So this kind of system things is not it's not for them. So they said they are, so they said that it's better for them to retire.
Right,
So
right.
we face in KPM.
Yes, that's great. That's an excellent sharing. Thank you, Azina. And it's so true. Unfortunately, the teachers, they're so overburdened by all the bureaucracy. And this is also very true for principals. When we interviewed principals for our study, you know, they, even though you ask them about issues related to youth development or teaching and learning, they will always fall back on talking about accountability. What is the performance of the school? What is the performance of the students? They constantly have to be conscious about that one issue: performance, performance, performance. And so they have to do everything they can to try to address that, because that's what they are being judged on. So I think Fatin mentioned about KPIs. Well, that's their whole world is about KPIs, meeting KPIs, as rather than meeting, you know, and addressing the well-being of the students and their development. They have to worry about all these other things. Okay, so, and these are the leaders of the school. These are the ones that set the vision, they set the tone, they set everything, right? So if they are preoccupied with all of these accountability issues, obviously they cannot spend, you know, the majority of their time on student-related issues. So it's a shame, but it's the reality of most, you know, public government school systems, not just U.S., not just Malaysia. It's pretty much, I think, a universal thing. So they are very bureaucratic, and that's the reality. So okay, all right.
So the next barrier is about order. Why must maintain order in school? So again, the person who is accountable for maintaining order is principal. So it's a lot of responsibility for the principals in school. Right? So control or order is important because it involves the safety and security in school. If students are scared and worried, they will not learn effectively. So order also fundamental to a decent learning environment. And by having order in school, students can learn effectively. So too much quest for maintaining order also can result to negative issues, such as rigid practices that impede learning and development, will give students the idea that adults are against them. You cannot do this, you cannot do this, you have to follow these rules. So maybe this will create this kind of thinking. So routinized processing of students. So it will be just a routine. You come to school and you do this from 8 to 2 o'clock. You have to do this, do this. Okay. Thirdly is rigid organization of the curriculum, and we'll create scheduling of classes activities, and it will give little variation and no free time in school. No free time in school involves teachers and also the student as well. So what we need to do to cater this problem is by giving students share in defining and maintaining order, as what Prof has explained earlier. So administrators and teachers practice non-linear learning process and different learning styles. So it will not be too rigid in class. Okay, so next, give responsibility to students then it will lead to their personal growth because when they learn about responsibility, many positive effects impacts will happen to them because they have to learn to be responsible to themselves and also to other people. Burden teacher with rigid curriculum or schedule. So you need to be flexible so they can focus more on the teaching process in classes. So it also as what I've been explained earlier about when teachers been burdened with the clerical tasks, so it will defeat the purpose of them for being a teacher. So they cannot focus towards their students.
Okay, so what do you guys think about this issue of order and control? Especially the last box on the right, what to do. Sounds pretty radical, doesn't it? Anybody want to comment?
Or what to do is possible if the students is well behaved. Is the environment whereby the student is all a good manner, well behaved, then it's okay. How about school whereby the students is not so to say juvana, but they have a means not a proper manner. If we give them to the authority of the responsible to do that without first to be supervised, or yeah, there will be another way around. The principal will be more depressed after that.
Okay, all right. What does anyone else? What do you guys think? So Mahfouz raises a good point. This sounds good if you have students that are already well behaved. Okay. Anyone else? You guys agree with what?
But for me, I think we learn discipline only in school. We never learn discipline in other places. So for me, order is good to have in school, but not too much order. You understand? Like something like that lah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
all
I
right.
realized we learn discipline only in school. Like, yeah.
So is it saying on the right side in the box, is it saying that there should not be order in school? Is it saying there should be chaos? That school is better if it's chaotic and there's no order and students are running around, like crazy people?
It's good to have order. Yes, a balance of order and control.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's understood that order is important. Of course, you cannot, like it says on the left, you cannot have, without safety and security, you cannot really have learning, right? Without order, there cannot be learning. And that's true. Okay. So there's a few comments here. Let me just open up the chat box here. So a balance of order and control. Okay, Mutiara said balance of order and control. It's good to have order, rules, and regulations. Okay. All right. All right. So you think it's saying that there shouldn't be any order or rules and no regulations? I think what they're actually saying here is not that there shouldn't be order or rules, but the role of the students in defining what those rules and orders are. In other words, again, giving the students the developmental responsibility more like adults. So they have say in what those rules and regulations are. Okay. Because again, if you want to approach them the same way you would approach children in primary school, then you just say these are the rules and you have to follow them, right? However, if you want to acknowledge the fact that they are young adults, then there are ways and there are processes for giving students a say in how order is defined, okay, and how order is maintained, right? And then also having good relationships with students. Teachers having good relationships with students also helps to maintain order as well. So it's not always an authoritarian kind of process where it's just a matter of strict control by the adults and and students just have to follow. right? So again, this is about, it's not to say that this is the only way to do things, but again, if we, because again, we're thinking again about youth development, and responsibility is one of the important competencies that young people at this age have to learn. If they have no say in how their environment, the rules and regulations of their environment, how that environment is shaped, then they're not learning responsibility. If I just tell you what to do all the time, how are you learning responsibility? You're not. Are you?
Yes, yes. Because people need to be governed by either some rules or regulations, or even some by someone.
Sorry, we
who
can't
has
hear
to-
you. Who's speaking?
Me, Huda, doctor.
Oh,
Prof.
Huda, can you speak a bit louder? It's hard to hear you.
I agree. Because human beings is a nature in needs to have order, and also to have someone or some authority to govern them.
Okay. Yes.
Can it be?
Okay. Yeah, of
That's
course.
my opinion.
Yeah, of course. No one is saying there shouldn't be order. No one is saying there shouldn't be governance. It's about participation. It's about young people being involved in that process, right? As opposed to just being passive recipients of rules and regulations, having them involved in the process. Okay, that's what they're saying here. So that the school becomes one of shared ownership. The students feel like it's their school, right? And then they take responsibility for that school, right? They feel a sense of attachment to that school because they helped define how things are done in that school, right? And so that is what they're really referring to here. It's not about not having order and not having governance. It's about students participating in that process. Okay, that's what they're talking about. And so this is often why we think we see that young people, even after they graduate secondary school, they have very little. They're very weak in things like decision making, leadership skills. Okay, because if you're told all the time what to do and you never have any opportunity to actually be involved in those processes, how are you supposed to learn those things? Right. That's often why our graduates, they tend to be a bit immature. They act like children because we treat them like children. And that's very true. If you treat someone like a child, they're going to act like a child. Right? Whereas if you treat them more like an adult, they'll act more like an adult. In other words, they'll have that sense of responsibility. They'll have that sense of ownership of the process. Okay. And so this is the argument. All right. Not to say that it's going to work every time without any hiccups or anything like that. No, it's not. It's often not easy to do it. Right. But again, this is about developmentally, what we call a developmentally appropriate practice. And these, again, secondary school young people, 15 and above, they're not children. They're not children, but we often treat them like children. All right. And so that's the argument. Okay. So it's not about, I know you guys are all talking about not having order. It's not about not having order. No one is saying you shouldn't have order in school. No, not at all. Okay. It's about the student's role in defining what that order is, maintaining that order, etc. It's a participatory process. Okay. And so this is the argument. Okay, so anything else, or can we move on?
So I continue. Okay, so the third barrier is inadequate resources. So when measured against multiple needs of a modern high schools, available resources are always inadequate. So this problem also we face in Malaysia or in any other countries. It's about budget, and then to solve the issue, principals have to negotiate with district administration over the school's budget, writing grant proposal, raise funds. We also did this in Malaysia, and most of the school rely on the sponsorship in the Parents Teachers Association, or PIBG we call it here. So the quest for funds to meet the school needs is another demand that hinder principals from school improvement and youth development. Because they focus on try to find more budget, more money that to bring development to their school. So they cannot focus on the students' development. So the last barrier is student needs. Due to the students' poor neighborhood environment, school has to deal with issues such as poor mental and physical health, bad nutrition, drug and alcohol abuse, teen pregnancy, etc. This is quite similar to what we watched in McFarlane movie before, because they are also facing this kind of issues. So it has resulted to unreadiness to learn, impede students' educational progress, disruptive behaviors, discipline problems, and inability or unwillingness to learn. So these barriers involve students. So when their environment is not conducive enough for them to learn, so it will affect their learning process.
Yeah, so inadequate resources is universal. So schools everywhere, no one has enough money. So, and it's true. I mean, it's really true. I mean, a lot of countries face this dilemma. And so it's true in Malaysia, it's true in the US, it's true in many countries. And so of course principals often have to, and now there's something called, you have entrepreneurial principals, actually, principals who have to be entrepreneurs just to make ends meet for their schools. And in fact, I had a graduate student, PhD student that just finished her PhD on that topic of entrepreneurial leadership among principals in schools. And it's amazing to hear some of the things that Malaysian school principals are doing to raise money for their schools. They're incredibly entrepreneurial, right? And they're real leaders. I mean, they're real visionaries in how they do it. It's really interesting. But that's often what it takes nowadays. Okay, and then the other issue of student needs. Unfortunately, schools become sort of a dumping ground for all of the other problems that students have in their lives. So if students have, like you can see there in the slide, if students have problems that stem from the family or from the neighborhood, or they have physical or mental health problems, or they don't have enough food to eat at home, maybe they're from very poor backgrounds, all those problems, of course they're going to bring to school with them, right? And then the schools have to deal with those problems in different ways. Maybe the students are not able or ready to learn. Maybe they have a lot of discipline problems and stuff like that. And so schools, are often not really prepared to deal with all these psychosocial issues that students often bring to school, right? And so now that's why a lot of schools, they have social workers in schools. I've advocated for a long time now to have youth workers in schools to deal with some of these issues as well. Youth workers are a little bit different than social workers. We're going to learn about youth workers in the coming weeks. So schools have to be, and teachers have to be more aware of all these different issues that students have nowadays, right? Teen pregnancy, right, among young women in school. There's so many issues now that among students that teachers have to deal with as well, right? So the needs of students are much greater than they used to be, and this is also going to affect how they develop in the context of school. All right, so that's important. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one or two more slides and we'll take our break. Okay, so any comments about that? Any of this stuff? No? Okay.
Okay, next we'll continue. How schools are structured to enhance development. Okay, is by restructuring. Restructuring is the change the organization. In this case is school, aiming to improve teaching learning process. Restructuring is also a process of confronting four challenging obstacles that has been explained by Azina earlier, which is accountability, order, inadequate resources, and student needs. The site-based management is one form of restructuring that changes the accountability. Okay.
Okay, we can continue.
The first kind form of restructuring is alternative school. Okay, this alternative school is alternative to standard high school. In a ways, they use block scheduling, means they more time explore topic in depth. They use team teaching. They will integrate subject, for example, maths and social science. The student will work in teams, and the student also will be working in the agency or group outside the school. Okay, the school will take risks with new approaches to means in the organization, the school organization, and the curriculum itself. And the rule, the instructional staff and administrative are driven to mark out new direction together. They must be together to make the restructuring works. Okay. Then they're becoming institutional models where the students do at least as well or better than those in standard high school.
Okay, so
Okay, do you
alternative
have
schools.
comment, Prof?
Yeah, sorry, Martina. So alternative schools are, I don't think they don't, in the US system, they have these things called charter schools. But in this case, I think these are mostly what they're talking about is, these are more probably private schools, but they are using alternative methods rather than what is customarily used in public schools. Like, so for example, something like block scheduling. Block scheduling is very interesting, actually. So for example, like there are even universities and colleges that use block scheduling. So for example, like you guys say you're taking 4 classes in a semester, right? Block scheduling is a bit different. Instead of taking 4 classes over a semester, you might take 1 class at a time. So you would take 1 class at a time for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and you'd have that class every day for like 4 weeks, right? And so what that does is it allows you to really focus in on that one topic for a certain amount of time. And so you're not distracted by all the other classes. And so you can really focus in on that topic and really learn it in much more depth. All right, so they do this, so that's something called block scheduling, and some schools use that. Team teaching, a way of integrating subjects. This is where teachers actually work together. And so they give their students projects that incorporate, for example, something like social studies and math together in the same project. So students learn different subjects together within the confines of a project rather than, just a simple sort of lecture-based format. Okay. So these are some ways that they're using as well. And then, of course, students working in the community. So doing like placement, like work placement during their semesters or during the schooling. Okay, so students have actual interaction with community, whether it's businesses or it's some public agency or NGO or whatever it is, that they're actually interacting and learning in the context of those actual community organizations, right? So they're not necessarily just learning in the classroom or in the school even, they're learning out in the community, right? So it allows them to really get experience, real world experience while they're in school actually, and they're learning that way, right? So it's a very effective way of learning. And I'm going to show you an example a little later about a school that really does a lot of that. And then, of course, being an alternative school, they're outside of the sort of government system, so they can take these kinds of risks, these types of new approaches they can use, right? And so that's the idea. So they're trying to incorporate different ways of doing things to meet those 4 those four issues or those four challenges that we just mentioned. We just heard Aslina talk about earlier. Okay, so let's do one more slide and then we'll take a break for our Margaret.
Okay. The performance on standardized tests. This is an educational issue to measure the result of various means of restructuring. The positive result may not become apparently quickly in later grades, but as the young people become successful adults, means that maybe the result cannot be seen during the exam, but the result can be seen when the student become already grad from the school or become young adult. They become successful.
So
the test score the test score may not be the best instrument for assessing the youth development, instead creating competence and character.
So when it comes to youth development, standardized tests don't really help us very much. Okay, I mean, there's certain level, they do test a certain level of competence, but they really don't. Of course, in terms of character, they don't test. They don't do anything in terms of character building. Standardized tests are very controversial. Of course, most school systems throughout the world rely on them still, and we know it's a big issue here in Malaysia. Testing is a very big issue. But again, when it comes to youth development, in terms of developing their character and their competence, standardized tests don't do much for young people. In fact, they're very difficult. They're not a good measure. They're not a good indicator of whether the school experience itself is helping to shape young people's character and competence. And this is, one of the critiques now about, we have this real issue in society about ethics, right? And morality and things like, raswa and all these things. These are issues of character, right? And then people say, well, what are our schools doing? Why are we producing all these students that have such poor character, right? And if you look at the way schools are set up, they are very much geared towards testing performance. That's it, right? They're not really designed or set up to develop competence and character, life competencies and character. Okay, and that's just a fact. So if we want, and of course we cannot blame schools for everything, because actually, as we know, youth development takes place in many different settings, right? First and foremost in the family, right? And then school, and then community, and then peers play a role, and all these different institutions play a role in youth development, right? But schools are one of the major institutions that help shape young people's character. Okay, so it is a fair question to ask. It is a fair question to ask, and this is a critique of not only of schools in Malaysia. It's certainly not. It's a question that people are asking everywhere. In fact, in the U.S., they had there was a big controversy about there was a big scandal of students in medical school cheating on their exams. Okay, and so you can imagine how dangerous it is when medical students are cheating on their exams, because what happens when that doctor is a surgeon, is performing surgery on somebody, and they don't know what they're supposed to do because, well, they cheated on the exam. They didn't actually learn the material. I mean, it's a serious, very serious issue, right? So these are things we have to ask about how we have, what are our goals in terms of our school and our schooling? Ultimately, do we want to produce just students that can pass exams, or do we really want to build their character and their competency for adulthood? Right? And this is where the youth development people are very critical of a lot of school systems. Okay. So it's an interesting issue. It's a very important issue. It's a controversial issue for sure. Anyone want to chime in? Anyone have any comments about that? Since it's a controversial issue, we might as well discuss it. What do you guys think? Do you agree with all the standardized testing? Do you think it's good for students? You're all products of the system, right? So you must have an opinion about it.
anyone?
Sorry, Mutiara, can't hear you.
Prof.
Yeah, Mahfuz.
Oh no, I just said anyone.
I didn't hear.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Mutiara, can you speak a bit louder? Oh, your internet is bad. Okay. It's okay. Zila said we are the product of standardized exam system. Okay. Oh, it's raining now. What, Mahfuz, what did you want to say?
I just want to share. This based on my experience. I'm from a school whereby the school is not. I don't know what to say whether proper because the based on the previous slide before this our colleague mentioned about the environment factor that affect the school. If you have most of you watch Dangerous Mind in 1995, my school is more like that. So pregnancy, drugs is what to say is usual. It's not extraordinary. It's usual.
Common.
So uh, and after recess, most of the students will go outside of school. They totally leave the school every day after recess. So there will be just several persons, students who want to. Therefore, if we the what the teacher do is that those who are willing to learn, the grade is not the point, but teachers will only focus on those who want to learn.
Effort.
So so from my experience, after few years of leaving the school, those who are staying in the school after recess, those are already will what we can say have a stable in terms of their professions.
Okay.
Even though their grades are not quite good during those times. I mean, for their SPM, most of them don't have any A's. They have B, C's, but because they are willing to stay, so after 10 years of that, after previous, during this, most of the my colleague, those who are stay after recess, we call the gang after recess because they are the only who want to who stay.
Yeah.
Including me. So those people don't have a good grade, but they have a stable profession after that. We mean nowadays.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Mahfuz. So yeah, so there was something about your character and your desire to learn that kept you there after recess. And so it was sort of, and you know, this is the problem with standardized tests is that even students that do very well on standardized tests, sometimes later in life, and we don't know how long that might be, but later in life, it doesn't necessarily indicate how successful they are as individuals, as people. I mean, even if they end up, you know, we often in our modern materialistic way of thinking about things, we often equate success with what kind of job you got, right? But those same people may be, in terms of their character, maybe not the best people in the world, or they may be not the most happy or content people in the world, you know, just because they have a high paying job. So that's why standardized testing is not a very good indicator of future success, you know, and future success in terms of in a more holistic way, you know. But clearly, Mahfuz, that's very interesting because clearly the group of that you're referring to, those who stayed after recess, clearly there was something about that maybe it was because the situation in the school was so difficult, but it made them sort of hardy, it made them resilient, and they ended up, you know, becoming more successful because of it, you know. So the experiences that students have in school often determine, you know, or help to determine how they end up, but not necessarily how well they score. It's not always how well they score on their exams, you know. It may be other experiences that they have that help to build their character that, you know, end up later contributing to their, you know, to their success in life, you know. So that's why standardized testing is not a very strong indicator. And I can see a lot of comments. Thank you. A lot of comments here as well. Yeah, it just cannot measure an individual's character, right? So yeah, it does. There's certain cognitive abilities it measures and all that. But I mean, we even see this in Malaysia. You know, there's been stories of those very successful students who get 13 A's on SPM, and then they go and they try and they study overseas, and they first semester they fail out and they have to come back to Malaysia, right? So clearly something about their character was not developed, you know, in their teens, even though they may have done very well on their exams, right? So again, it's this there's this gap between, you know, academic performance and then competence and character. So this is why youth development people try to look at it more holistically. Yeah, number of A's and all that. Okay, so we can get back to some of these comments after the break. Let's have our break now. Take our break for about 20 minutes and come back. Okay?
Okay, Prof. Thank
Thanks.
you.
In a bit.
Thank you.
Okay, are we all back? Okay, so let's see if everyone's back yet. So I just wanted to well, let's let them continue, and then I'll get back to my question. Anyway, a few thoughts came to me during the break that I want to share with you, but let's let Mardiana continue. Mardiana, are you there?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Okay, okay. Go ahead, please.
Okay. The first form of restructuring is whole school restructuring. Restructuring also occur in some of district school, which the school all employed team teaching, created small classes, use the seminar method of teaching, and develop assessment of students through portfolios and student exhibitions. They also create a partnership with universities and businesses and brought family into closer relation with schools, which is childcare, clinics, and social service. Means if the student have student with babies, they can put their babies in the childcare during when having a class. This new combination improving the educational programs and student and school become engaged.
So these are some of the practices that schools that have done this kind of restructuring some of the changes that they've encountered. So they're talking about, you know, like reducing class sizes, making classes smaller, using team teaching, some of the things that we've already mentioned. So in this part of the paper or of the chapter, they go into some examples here. Um, Assessing students not according to exams, but more through portfolios of their work, based on more project-based work and stuff like that. Creating partnerships with universities and businesses to allow students to do work out in the community, so they get to do more projects out in the community. Having closer relations with families. All right, so creating communities of learning, where the families, the parents especially, have a large role to play. Um, and I've seen this in schools where the parents will be invited into the schools to actually help the teachers, assist the teachers in the classrooms. There's some schools that do that. It's very interesting. Um, Whereas we know, like in a lot of schools nowadays, it's schools are very leery of parents and of letting parents get too involved in the school, right? Teachers tend to be a bit defensive now with parents, and the relationships between them are not as good as they used to be, right? But that's a very important part of the process, is schools having good relationships with the parents. Okay, so these are just some of the things that they mention. Yeah. Okay. Unless there's any comments or questions, we can just continue.
Okay, the next one is school within a school and houses. This is to address problem with large urban or central high school with massive student. They will break down the student into school. For example, 4 school with 1,000 student each, or 8 school with 500 student each, or may be divided into smaller units or houses. The school will be organized around circular team, which will be choose and according to their interest, the student interest. Okay, teacher and student know and understand better because they are in the same group over a period of years, and there will be new whole integrated subject. And this kind of school is can already show in the cases by the author is case 6.1 and 6.2, which the 6.1 is about small learning communities in Philadelphia. It's about high school in Philadelphia, which they practice this kind of restructuring. And 6.2, career academies, is about Encina High School.
So this is one of the ways that they're trying to deal with these really large schools, to reduce the class sizes and give the students more choice in their learning, right? So they have these things called schools and schools, or schools. What's the other ones? School within a school, they call it, or houses. And this is like what Bella mentioned before about teachers and students having relationships over a period of years, or an extended period of time, to help build those relationships between students and teachers. And then letting students choose where they want to focus on, what kind of subjects or what kind of areas they want to focus on in their learning. Okay, so again, giving the students more choice in their own learning is another important aspect of that. So, okay.
Okay, the author also share about the academies. It's also school within school, but called academies. There are 18 schools in Philadelphia organized by subject matter teams, which the student is top limit is 400 students. It permits and encourages different approaches where the teaching and learning according both interests, and allows variation, support, risk-taking, and experimentation. It's a more dynamic and interactive way of providing education to master's students. Okay, also, the author also shared the case 6.2, career academies, for further understanding.
So having choice, so it's not like where you're forced to go into a certain arts or science stream, right? It's you choose basically what you want to focus on in your studies. And this is even at the high school level, secondary school level. Okay, and then you can pursue that. And then it says in the article that one study, a follow-up study that was done on this type of academy approach, showed that 92% of the students were productively engaged after graduation in their area of choice. Okay, so again, it's again treating these students more like adults and letting them make choices about their own education, rather than forcing them into a certain subject matter. That's the idea behind it. Okay. Comments, questions? No? Okay.
Okay, the next one is City in School. It's a new way of community in which school resides. The city will become the focus of different parts or aspect of the school curriculum, and it draws both into new kind of study uh, and direct interest come to see greater relevance of their study because they can relate their curriculum to the city. I'm not sure the example of the how they are practicing it. Do you have example, Prof, with this kind of?
I'm gonna show a short video after this
Oh,
that
okay.
looks at that kind of approach, where the school curriculum, parts of the curriculum itself involve students going out into the community, into the city, to do their work actually. So it's a way of integrating the school, the actual school, and the community that you know that surrounds the school, whether it's a city or a town or whatever.
Okay. We don't have it. I think we don't have it in here in Malaysia. Okay, I
But it would be easy
continue.
to do, actually. It wouldn't be very hard to do.
Oh, I see. Okay, the next one is cooperative education. Alternating classroom instruction with work experience, organization or outside group. There will be 1 or 2 days in classes and 3 or 4 days outside the school. Outside the school. It a similar pattern with vocational school, except academic staff will become their work supervisor. And curriculum are developed by practitioner in trades. You
Yeah.
can see case 6.3
So
for
this is
further.
quite common in vocational technical education. In a lot of countries, their high schools, they do this to give the students hands-on experience while they're still studying in secondary school. Okay, so this is quite a common approach. It's a very effective approach. I got to follow this type of approach during my master's degree program, which was in social work, where we were in class 2 days a week and then we were working 3 days a week. It's a really effective way of learning because everything you learn in the classroom, you get to immediately apply it in the field. Okay, and vice versa, and vice versa. So when you have issues that come up while you're in the field of working, you bring them back to the classroom for discussion and all that. So it's a very effective way of work of educating. Okay.
Okay, there is a common theme in restructuring. There are different kinds of learning opportunities. Student must be engaged in order to learn well. Student must be given responsibility in classroom for own learning, contributing to governance of the unit or school. This bring out development of competence and character. These new ways produce heightened individuals' growth and maturity. Restructuring aim to change teaching learning environment into dynamic and interactive student involvement and challenges. Once truly interested, the student will become more competent and in character.
So much of the goal here in these approaches is really to increase student engagement in learning, right? So we want students to be more interested in what they're learning, find that it's relevant to their lives and to their futures, right? And then of course taking more responsibility in the school. Again, talk the way we mentioned about giving more adult responsibilities within the schools themselves, right? Can I just ask you guys a question? How many of you were prefects in your schools, in secondary school? Anybody here? Any former prefects here in the class?
I want to be, but not selected.
Me too.
Okay, so nobody was a prefect here.
I have.
Not interested at all.
Yeah, she said no. Mahfouz, you were a prefect.
Yes.
Okay, so what was your role as a prefect in school? Can I ask?
At least student come to school.
Yeah, but what was your job? Like, what did you do? What was your role, your job?
I have to make sure that they enter the class, they enter the assembly, to make sure that they after the recess period they have to come back to the class. All
Okay.
those things.
So you were actually involved in implementing the rules of the school. Is that right?
Implement, yeah.
Okay.
Not manage, but implement, yes.
Okay. But so that is exact, but that's actually an example of what one of the things they're talking about here, in terms of giving the students more responsibility and governance. Now, of course, maybe you weren't involved in the decision making per se about what rules to follow and what those rules look like and all that, but you were involved in implementing the rules, right? So that is one example of contributing to school governance. Again, more as an implementer. But there are schools that actually do convene what they call teacher-student councils. So like students and teachers will form, not all the students, but there'll be a group of students, maybe a group, maybe the prefects or something like that. You know, the leaders, student leaders will come together with the teachers, and they will have sort of discussions and about what rules should look like, what disciplinary measures should look like, and stuff like that. So it gives the students input into that process, right? So they feel like they are part of the governance structure of the school, right? So there are schools that do that. Maybe not in Malaysia yet, but there are schools that do that. All right, so that's an example. So it's not about, I just want people to be clear that this is not about turning the school order up on its head, where we give students let the students run the school and stuff like that. That's not what it's about. But it's about involving them in the process of governance. So they learn those adult roles of how to govern an organization, how to make decisions, how to manage, and all that. Okay, so these are the kind of competencies and skills that often our young people in secondary school don't get, because they're just constantly being told what to do all the time. So we had this problem where a lot of our undergraduate students, for example, everyone complains that, the students are so used to spoon feeding, right? Maybe you've heard this before, right? Students nowadays, all they're used to is spoon feeding. So, the teachers and lecturers have to provide them with everything. They can't do anything on their own, right? Well, this is probably one of the reasons why, is that in secondary school, students are not used to taking initiative to do anything on their own. They're constantly being told what to do, given the materials. There's no sense of agency among students. And so when they get to university, they're not able to do anything on their own because they were never involved in that process, right? So it's very hard for them. Okay, and so this is kind of the idea. Is you want to develop their character and develop their ability to do things on their own, to have those competencies, to make decisions, right? To manage people, all those things. So usually young people that are involved in like youth associations, or they're involved in, maybe they're prefects, or they're involved in these kinds of opportunities, they tend to be a bit more advanced and mature in those areas, because they have those experiences, they've developed those soft skills more than a lot of the other young people. Okay, so this is what it's about. It's about developing those kind of competencies. All right, catch the latecomers. All right, good. So, okay, so can you, Mardiana, you got more for us? Ada lagi? Okay.
Hadi will continue.
Oh, okay. Okay, Hadi.
All right. Thank you, Mariana. Okay. I will continue our group presentation regarding the three last part of the article. Marina has explained about the restructuring, a few example of very interesting example of restructuring the high school, and this part, the number 5, is what beyond the restructuring. It means like what is the how to start the restructuring. So the article highlight two main points. This is which is changing the attitude and sharing power. Okay, next. Okay, to transform schools into a setting that consistently promote the development of students, there are two points. Firstly is to change in the way adults think about youth, and secondly is sharing power of what happened in schools. Adults always think that youth are too green and inexperienced, and like our friend Michael shared, it's like education factory where the teachers and the administrators decide everything for the students. And in this point, that we should give change the mindset and give chances to the youth, to the student, to take more responsibility towards their own learning to a certain degree. So, and to do this, it depends on the vision of leaders, which is the school principal or the headmaster. He is or she is the key person in beyond restructuring.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is now looking at the way, the attitudes towards that goes beyond just structuring of the school, but the way that we think about youth, the way we approach youth, the way that we view youth. All right, and then so it starts there. It really starts there. You cannot have any of that restructuring activity that we just talked about without thinking and understanding why it's important. Right, so that's the first part. Okay, so again, this is about bringing youth and adults together. It's not about separating them. It's not about, schools have a natural way of creating barriers between youth and adults. So it's always the adults against the youth. We don't want that. We want them to be in this sort of partnership. We want them to be working closely together. We want to bring and improve the relationships between youth and adults together. Okay, and so this is a way of doing that, so that young people are working more closely with adults, and that way they're learning from adults, and they're learning the ways of adults in healthy ways. Okay, so that's what this is really all about. Okay. Sorry, Hadi. Go ahead.
Power sharing. Power sharing is with teacher and student, and by teacher with the student. With power sharing, it creates respect for ideas of the others, and then we need to give others responsibility for school operation. And then it also creates trust, where trust develops among individuals and across status level. Teachers trust the student, and of course the student, of course, trust the teachers. But this is will just happen when the attitude changes. And secondly is the vision. Transformation in high school must begin with a vision set by school principal, of course, the key person, and what the school can be, whether it is in academic achievement, care for the individual student, connect with the community, and so on.
Yeah, so it really does start at the top. That study I mentioned to you before from my student that studied entrepreneurial principles in Malaysia, one of the things that she found was that all of this really has to start at the top with the principal. The principal has such an important role to play in terms of laying out a vision for the school, and then getting the teachers involved, even getting the students involved, right? So students, what she found was that schools that were more principals that were more entrepreneurial in their approach, basically they got the whole school to be entrepreneurial just because of the power of their leadership. Okay, so it really has to start at the top. If you want to do anything related to this kind of thing with making schools more youth development friendly, it has to start with the vision of the principal. Okay, it's the only way it can really happen.
Okay, next. Okay, as you guys see, I choose the picture of the headmaster Sangha Sinaya, who have watched his video. He is he loved environment. It's not an initiative from the higher authority, like from the ministry or so on, but the initiative is come from him. So he make when he has the vision and the school follows. So the principal must first speak about the willingness to experience and take some risks with respect to change curricula and incorporating new practices is very challenging. And challenge the staff to create a caring environment, and he also must set the example. And thirdly is the principal must be a powerful role model in leadership for risk-taking and reform all the staff, teachers, coaches, and also the support staff, including the secretaries and also the cafeteria workers.
Yeah, good example, good local example. I'm sure, of course, we don't know too much about how he did it, what he did, Mr. Singha, the principal, but I'm sure he had to do a lot of that work that you just spoke about, a lot of visionary kind of work to get the school to buy into his vision and his agenda. So, but yeah, you can clearly see he's a has a very strong vision for what he wants to do. And so the whole school transforms because of that.
Okay. In the article, there are two interesting examples. Firstly is a story of a new principal in Tilden High School, where this principal, he made a huge banner in purple and white, which is the school color, and hung across the entry hall with the word Tilden Pride. So the principal himself, he talked about what the slogan means with the freshmen in terms of the regular attendance, academic integrity, doing homework, and staying away from drug and alcohol. So with this slogan, it gives a meaning to the student and establish a different way of thinking about the school and also about themselves. So it is very effective when a slogan is recognized. And the second example is in vocational agricultural high school in Philadelphia. A principal, he himself asked the staff to give more attention to every individual student, with emphasis on a student who come with aggravated behavioral problems, because he understands that the curriculum for vocational is not for a very perform students in terms of academic, but in vocational, to develop skills in teenager who come from disadvantaged background, which they can use the skill to make future for themselves, for a brighter future. And if the teacher connection with the student is very good, and the student will feel different, like what my friend previously explained. When a strong bond between teachers and student interaction, so it gives the student a better feeling, and they have can strive for better in whether it's in academic or in their life.
Thank you, Hadi. Yeah, I think another good example of this is the McFarlane movie that we watched, because that's really what he did. Is that through the connection he made with the boys, the students, he was able to show them something that they would not have been able to see for themselves, which is a future and going to college and all that, right? They wouldn't even have thought of that had he not had that relationship with them, right? So when teachers connect with students, it opens up a new world for students that they don't even know exists out there, right? And so that's one of the really important aspects of bringing the students and the teachers more closely together, as well as with the principals as well. It's opening up all those new possibilities for students that they didn't even know existed. Okay.
Okay, okay. In the article, the author quote 6 conditions by Zeldin and his colleague, which for successful youth development in organization to be applied in school. There are 6 conditions. Firstly is board of directors committed to youth governance and entrepreneurial decision making, which is the school board support. Okay. Secondly is the adult leaders strongly advocate for including young people in decision making role which is the leaders of student organization. Then the use pressure and support for increasing youth participation in provide in governance, which also involve the leader of student organization. And fourthly is adopting a variety of experience with youth. The adult is the teachers, the counselors and coaches. They need more interaction with their students. Fifth is the organization provides support for youth to advance through a variety of decision-making opportunities. This increasing decision-making responsibility, whether it's in class, in student organization, school governance, and also in the field work. This will give them an experience and build them to be a future leader. And lastly, organization involve or the youth in governance position early on in the organization change process, where the students are invited by teachers at the beginning of the school years. So the students are given chances to give their opinion on what they are interested and what they want, what activities that they want, what program that they want. But I would like to highlight that teachers and the school authorities are not necessarily have to follow all the ideas by the students, but the students have their right to give their opinion and have the right to be listened to. So what good from the ideas can be applied in the school.
Right. Yeah, that's a good commentary, Hadi. Yeah, these are not like, these are just suggestions, different ways that schools can include youth in governance, decision making, participation, etc. So they're just examples. But most of these examples are actually taken from youth organizations or community organizations where they're quite effective. In schools, it may be a little bit different because schools are much more bureaucratic, they're much more rigid, right? But like you said, Hadi, it's giving them the opportunity to give their views on things. It's not necessarily that youth make all the decisions, no, but at least they have the opportunity to give suggestions, give recommendations to the principal, to the teachers, and so forth. So it's just giving them that opportunity. The other thing is that often students actually have very good ideas because nobody knows the students better than the other students, right? So, and especially in situations where like teachers may be having a difficult time with certain students, or often it's their peers, the other students, that can help the teachers to better understand the students that are having the problems, right? So that can also be a strategy as well. Okay.
We proceed with the sixth part, where the place of school in a community-wide partnership and initiative. Okay, in this part, the purpose is to build a true partnership between standard high school and other institution or group in the community. There are three examples in the article. Firstly is a full service school by Joy Dreyfus. Suggests a model of school to work program, which opportunities for growth and development beyond what is already available in the high school curriculum, where the students are exposed to real working environment. The second example is the Beacon Initiative, school response to need for after school care. So they make use of school building for hub of community activities during the non-school hours. So after school hours, the school building is allowed for the communities to do their activities. And the third example is Learning Web. It's an informal apprenticeship program collaborated with Haka Public School, sorry for the pronunciation, with the guidance of the counselor, where it's offer learning opportunities for students who are not thriving in school. So this is an alternative outside of the school, with collaboration with the community to help the student in school.
Okay, so these are just different models of integrating the schools more with the community to give students additional and different types of learning experiences. So school to work, so combining school and work opportunities, The beacons is a very interesting initiative. I actually did some work on related to the beacons when I was in the US. And especially in very low income communities or in rural communities where there's not a lot of resources, they allow the schools, so after school, like say school finishes around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after that, they open up the school for the community to use for different things, classes, whatever it is, youth programs. So the school becomes like a community center. So it's a very interesting approach, and it can be very useful even in Malaysia, especially in like rural communities where there's not a lot of infrastructure, you know, stuff like that. Okay, Hadi?
Okay. Next, okay. However, there are also challenges for the engagement with the community. Firstly, of course, the funding, additional funding needed outside the given budgeting for the school. Like Prof explained before, example of the entrepreneurship principle, where he can get funding, maybe get the sponsorship and so on for the this engagement to happen. Secondly is the bureaucracy. To engage community, to engage with the school, sometimes there are a lot of procedures, and sometimes they are limited approval. Sometimes the schools need to refer to higher authorities and so on. So to make the engagement happen, school and community, sometimes it takes time, although it's only a simple thing. And the thirdly is inadequate resource. So we always hear that people say do more with less. So if they have more sponsorship, they can do more with the scholarship. But if they don't have the resources, they can do whatever they can with whatever resource that they have. That is the challenge.
Okay. That's fine, thank you. Anything, any comments, Marie? Okay, conclusion.
Okay, next. Okay, in conclusion, okay, I highlight 3 points that I think is the key to the transformation or restructuring the high school. Firstly, the school transformation process is a task of leadership by the school board and central administration, and by parents, teachers, legislators, communities, and so on. And of course, the key person is the principal. Okay. Secondly, in creating high school that foster youth development, rests on democratic values, on administrators sharing their authorities and power with teachers, colleagues, with students, and on the idea of community in which students and their families have much to contribute as a school personnel. So democratic values, sharing authority and power, changes of attitude. So this can happen only the attitude is changed, and they have to open their mind first. Okay. Thirdly, the community must be educated about what is it mean and what is take to bring it about. Time in resource is very necessary. Which is time is for development of change and experimentation to work. So sometimes it takes time. Sometimes cannot see what we have done today. We happen or bear the fruits tomorrow. Maybe it takes years to make or to see the fruition or to see the impact and resource to give substantial to the transformation process.
Yeah, thank you. Hadi, that was a very good comment you just made. Is that often these things, you don't see the really fruits of them until many years down the line. And that's what makes it so difficult, is that it's very hard to measure often. You know, how the impact, the real impact of people's of these developmental experiences. It's really hard to measure. Okay, so we've already sort of established or you know, kind of thrown out there the idea that standardized tests are not a very good indicator of that. But it's really hard. It's something that's a challenge to measure. So when we say things like, you know, UPM is not preparing young people or preparing its students for the world of work because, you know, 6 months after they graduate, they don't have jobs yet. Well, but that's a very short-term, short-sighted way of looking at an education, right? I mean, what is the cumulative long-term impact of their experience in UPM? That's a lot harder to determine, right? We don't know. But just because they don't have a job 6 months after they graduate is not necessarily because of the education they got at UPM, but policymakers like to make those kinds of connections, even though it's really not fair to do that in reality. Okay, so thank you to our presenters. Very nice job. Thank you very much. And I think it's a very important topic. I think education and schooling is always a topic of interest to people, but looking at it a little bit differently, I think is really important. And especially this is a class on youth and society, not on education. So we are looking at it a little bit differently. Okay. I have a question before we continue, I have a question for Amira. Amira, are you still here? Because earlier in the class, Amira, you mentioned that you attended,
Yes.
You attended religious school or Islamic school. I'm just curious, in your experience in Islamic school, did you feel that the school placed more emphasis on character development because it was a religious school, or was the school very much also emphasizing results and performance? What was your experience there?
So, sorry, basically you were asking like how is the environment there? How they emphasize in the...
Yeah, I mean, did you feel that because it was an Islamic school, there was more emphasis placed on character development rather than performance? That like a normal school.
For me, they have both because they like they macam pentingkan both, but yeah, but I don't know how to answer that actually.
Okay. Did you feel they placed a lot of emphasis on character development, character building? Not sure.
Yeah, they do. Like for example, they really like macam make sure we do both. We take both like the co-curriculum activities and also academic. Like they make us compulsory to join clubs, like social clubs and activities, events like that. So we and then they also do like I'm not sure if other schools actually do this, but in our school they encourage students to do business. Like during the recess time, students are able to like open table along the hallway, and everyone is like selling their stuff. So they are like and emphasize on the entrepreneur things.
Interesting. Okay.
So for me, it's a character development. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only reason I ask is because like if you go to, like, for example, if you go to an art school, they have these like high schools for fine arts, for example. Of course, there's going to be more emphasis on developing those competencies, the arts and artistic competencies. Or if you go to a science or a technical school, they're going to place more emphasis on those competencies. So I was just wondering, in an Islamic school, is the emphasis more on character development because it is an Islamic school? I see Mutiara is also mentioning that she went to an Islamic school.
Sorry, I just want to add some more.
Yeah, go ahead.
The socialization among students, like it can. I'm like in Islamic school, so they don't allow us to talk with the boys. But if you want to talk with the boys, you can, but make sure it's in a open space. Like if you got caught, you're talking to a boys in a class, you might get something from the discipline teachers. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's the social norm.
So I think that part young making the students feels lack of confidence to talk with the boys when they go out from the schools, but that doesn't that depends on the person itself, individual.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just curious about that. Anyone else have anything you want to?
Doctor, can I share?
Mutiara, yes, please go ahead.
So in my school, character building is one of our strengths. I remember that the day when I was in high school, they created some sort of the best student. It's not the smartest students in the semester during the semester, but it is the one who behave good, who can behave goodly in school, if
Right.
you know what I mean.
Right.
So that kind of students is being rewarded as best students. So meaning that character is one of the most important things. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because nowadays, yeah, awards are usually given for, top scorer, top scorer on this, top scorer on that. So, yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. Yeah, that was what we would call learning theory. Trying to rewarding people for that kind of thing, for good character or good behavior. That's interesting. I have not come across that yet. Okay, thank you, Mutiara. All right. Okay, so now I would just like to show you guys a very short video. This is a very unique example of a school that tries to use, like what we just read about. There's some schools that try to involve youth in community interaction with community as a way of helping them to really to learn as part of their education, as a core part of their education, and how that sort of affects how they develop. And I think you'll see from these students, these are very mature students, even though they're secondary school, they're high school students. What's really interesting about this school is also that this school is actually a school for kids or students that were more or less either kicked out of regular schools, or they didn't really want to be in regular schools. They had a hard time in regular schools. Okay. So just take a look at this and then we can discuss after. Okay. It's very short, just about 3 minutes.
Welcome to Clark Street Community School, a place where you can find your path, chart your course, pursue your passions. Clark Street Community School focuses on personalization and meaningful engagement in learning. Clark Street Community School is a personalized, place-based, democratic school. These 3 pillars form the foundation as we all work towards our goal of deep learning through meaningful engagement.
Being a student at Clark Street, I really like that I get to personalize my own learning experience. I get to create projects based on what I want to learn that goes along with the elements that I need.
It's gotten me really involved and really excited about how I learn and what I learn.
It makes you feel like a grown-up because you have to be reliable, you have to be honest on where you're going, if you're actually going to be there, the information you actually got. It makes you feel like you're trusted.
I've had to change the way I think about school, and I think by being a part of the community has really helped that.
We see over and over every day that kids are more interested and engaged when they get to participate, plan, and make choices about their education. That interest and engagement is what sets the foundation for learning. It's a simple concept that when students have more control over their environment and their education, they respond positively and proactively. Of course, students get structure and direction, but it's amazing to see what they're capable of and the directions they choose.
I didn't give up because I had encouragement from students and teachers because they knew I could do it even when I felt like I really couldn't.
I like being able to do projects that involve things that I like.
The relationship between educators, students, parents, and the community is at the core of how our school is governed, making Clark Street a true community school.
It's a smaller environment and it's really like, you're like a family, so people trust you and they take your word for what you say.
I feel like having my opinions considered when we're making decisions, it makes it feel like this is my school.
If we are successful, each step of our journey engages students in a meaningful way and provides a highly personalized educational experience. It's exciting to see this model grow and expand in our school.
It felt really good to create a project that I was super proud of and that I enjoyed doing, so then I wanted to make all my other projects just like that, because then it makes school fun coming to.
You get to pick what you want to do with your learning. You get to make your own projects, you get to pick your classes. They're not like you have to take a math class, you'll take this math class this year. It's you get to do what you want when you're ready at your time, but you do have to, meet expectations. Like you still take math and science, but you do it in your own personal way. So whatever fits your needs and the way you want to learn.
Clark Street Community School is a public charter high school for students in grades 9 through 12 in the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District. Your life, your passions, your learning come together at Clark Street Community School. We invite you to get in touch to apply and learn more.
Okay, so that's Clark Street School. So that's not like most US schools. That's a very unique school, even in the US. Oops, sorry, turn off the YouTube. Okay, but I think you can hear from the students they're explaining some of the same themes we just talked about. Yeah, trust and responsibility and decision making, project-based learning, right? So for example, when I was there, I did some research there, and when I was there and I was interviewing, I was talking to some of the students. I actually observed a class that the students themselves chose to take. In other words, they went to the school, the staff, the school staff, the teachers or the principal, and they said, you know, we'd like to have a class in this topic. Can we have a class in this topic this semester? And then so the principal went and found, you know, teachers that are willing to teach that class. And then if they have to, sometimes they bring in experts from the community to teach the class. Same way like universities bring in adjunct professors from outside, right? And they have that class. So when I was there, the students wanted to have a class on like disaster management, and they wanted to focus on, at that time, there was a big earthquake in Haiti, which is near the US, Haiti. So like, so for example, like students here wanting to have a class on the tsunami in Indonesia, you know, response, disaster management from the perspective of the Aceh tsunami, you know. So they went to the teachers said, we want to have a class on this, and they had a class on it. And the way the class was structured was that there's no exams or anything. They just do projects. So here's the class on the Haiti earthquake, and each student gets to choose a project that they want to do in relation to that topic. And so the whole semester, the students just work on their individual projects in relation to that topic. So it's very interesting. And they had students there that were literally, they were kicked out of regular high schools. They couldn't serve, they just couldn't do it. They no discipline, you know, they were just constantly getting into trouble. And then they were at this school, and you could see that it was basically, you know, it really helped them to sort of find themselves, you know, and to learn to appreciate school again. You know, so it's a very interesting approach. I learned a lot there. But again, it's not like you can do that in every school, obviously. You know, it's quite a small school. They don't have a lot of, you know, the number of students is nothing like it is here. You know, so there are certain things that they need. But like I said, even in the US, that's a rare kind of type of school. Most schools are not like that. But I think it does really illuminate some of the things that we've talked about today. And so, yeah, like Mutiara, you want to learn Mandarin, you can go and ask the school to have a class on Mandarin. And that semester you can study Mandarin, you know. But like the black girl, what she said in the video about, they still have to meet the same requirements that normal schools do. You know, like they still have to pass all their math and all their science, but they give them the freedom on when they, you know, how they, you know, sort of when they take the classes, you know, and then within the classes themselves, it's mostly project based. So for example, like they study physics by watching football games and, you know, and figuring out, you know, the physics of the ball and all that. So it's all applied learning. It's pretty much all applied learning, you know, and the students really like that. Okay, so it's a very unique way. So there are, you know, there are ways that we can integrate all these youth development concepts into education, right? But it definitely does require some imagination, some creativity, and doing things differently. All right, but it can be done. It can be done.
Prof, if I may,
yes,
give my opinion.
Yeah.
In our life, we must have balancing between what we want and what life need. Like all the students mostly said that they can choose what they want. They just do whatever they want. But in life, not as ideal as that. Sometimes we need to do that something that we don't want to do, especially in when we work. Not all the time that we can do whatever we want to do. So that I think must be balance between to build youth. We need to balance what they want and what life need to do. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, thanks, Amira. That's a good comment. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, even in that school, they still have to, like I said, they still have to take all those required classes and all those subjects. They still have to take them. They still have to pass them. It's not like they can. It's not like they can. I'm just going to study, whatever I want, and then I'm going to graduate. No, it's not like that. It's within the structure of the requirements that they have to pass. It's giving them a certain amount of freedom to choose what is of interest to them, and it's bringing out their personal interests. It's a way of developing their personal interests. So it's not really about letting them do whatever they want, not at all. And of course they are, of course they have a lot of requirements in terms of their attendance and all that stuff. They're not allowed to slack. They get graded on their projects. It's not like they can just, half-ass their projects and still get A's and all that. Not at all. In fact, some of the schools in Malaysia are doing this. Even my daughter's school, which is an Islamic school, it's an integrated Islamic school. In their program, in their secondary school program, they're using a similar method where they're letting the students decide when they want to take certain classes. So the students have a say in developing their own class schedule, right? So it's not like, you have to take this class at this time and stuff. It's not so regimented. The students can choose, well, this semester, I think I want to focus on my science classes, and then the semester after that, they focus more on their math classes. So they have a certain amount of freedom in choosing their class schedules, right? Doesn't mean they don't have to take math and science. They still have to take it, right? So it's not the idea of letting them do whatever they want. No, not at all. But it's about bringing out their interests and their passions. It's about developing that, right? And so that so giving them that level of choice. This is again developing the competency of decision making. If you tell young people everything that they have to do every minute of the day, they do not develop the competency of how to make decisions because they're not making decisions. It's as simple as that. So it's not a matter of freedom. It's a matter of developing certain competencies, and you need freedom to build those competencies. If you don't have freedom, there's no way you can learn how to be responsible as a decision maker. You just cannot, because you're constantly being told what to do. Okay, so it is a different way of doing things. But I know, you guys are used to a certain way, a certain very regimented way, where there's a lot of control in how education is performed. And I know it's hard to think of education differently. I understand that. Okay. But there are different ways of doing things. Okay, so now I would just like to, before we, I just want to take 5 minutes. Okay, just take 5 minutes just to do this quick exercise. Okay, so let's look at from the reading in the class, think about our schools in Malaysia, okay? From a youth studies, youth development perspective, can you name 3 aspects of our schools that should be improved to better meet the developmental needs of our students, okay? So we've discussed it a little bit during the class, but maybe you could just write them down. Here's the link. I'll copy it into the chat box as well, okay? So just quickly think three things that you think, or 3 ways or 3 aspects of our schools that you think could be improved to better meet the developmental needs of our students. Okay, so just take 5 minutes or so, think about it, and jot your responses down. And this goes for any school, anywhere, any system. There's always things that can be improved, especially when it comes to meeting students' developmental needs, right? Is that clear? Any questions?
No.
Okay, so here's the link I put in the chat box also. You can just click on it in the chat box if you want, and you can just jot down your answers. Sorry, this is, sorry, I forgot to mention, please, for those of you who are from China, please speak from the Chinese perspective, and then like Mutiara from Indonesian perspective, okay? I didn't mean everyone should be talking about, should responding to Malaysia schools. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I
sorry.
was about to ask that.
Yeah, no, you should answer the question according to your own system, your own school system. And again, try not to think so much about academic performance alone. Think about the more holistic sort of developmental competencies that we're referring to. Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys finish that up on your own. You can just add your answers there onto the Padlet. But for those of you who are more interested in this topic in relation to, I actually published this a few years ago. Next week we're gonna learn more about youth adult partnership. But today we actually touched on it. Some of the things we spoke about relate to youth adult partnership. But I wrote this article a few years ago, and it deals with the issue, what we've talked about today. And there's also part of the article deals with it from the Islamic perspective, just in case anybody is interested. I will just add it to the Putra Blast in case you'd be interested to read more about it. Okay? Because I know some of you, there may be some interest in it from that perspective, and so I do cover that a bit in here in relation to not only Malaysia but from the Islamic perspective as well. Okay, just to share. Let's see how our Padlet's going. Okay, everyone. So I'll let you finish that up on your own, but we will sign off for now. Okay, so I really appreciate the inputs tonight and the interactive discussion, and even the disagreements. It's very healthy. It's very good to have in class. We shouldn't all agree on everything. We should have some disagreements so that we can have some discussion and deeper discussion about these issues. So I really appreciate your participation, all of you. Okay. Thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Have a good week, everyone.
Prof.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Prof.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you,
Okay.
Prof.
Bye-bye.